Hello and welcome to the 6 Minutes English Podcast. Fun, clear, and easy to follow English practice.
Remember to like this video and subscribe, so English can be part of your daily life.
I was thinking about the internet today and how much we rely on it. It got me wondering, how did it all start? It feels like it's always been around, but it hasn't, right?
That's a great question. It definitely hasn't always been around, at least not in the way we know it. The history is actually quite fascinating, full of interesting twists and turns. Where do you want me to kick off? We could start right at the beginning.
Yes, please, right at the beginning. I'm curious about the very first ideas. Kick off means to start something, right? Like a football game starts with a kickoff?
Exactly. You got it. It's a very common phrase. So, to kick off the story of the internet, we have to go back to the Cold War era, specifically the late 1960s in the United States. The primary driver wasn't initially commercial, but rather military and research-based. The U.S. Department of Defense established something called ARPANET, the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network.
ARPANET? So, it was a government project? What was the main goal? Yes, primarily a government project, with strong ties to universities and research institutions. The main goal was to create a decentralized communication network that could withstand a nuclear attack. The idea was that if one part of the network went down, the rest could still function. This was a revolutionary concept at the time, no central hub that could be easily destroyed. It was about sharing computing resources and research data among different institutions. That makes sense for the Cold War. So, it was literally for computers to talk to each other, not people emailing or browsing websites yet? Precisely. It was much more basic than that. Early uses included remote login, allowing researchers at one university to use a computer at another, and file transfer. Email, in a very rudimentary form, actually came quite early, in the early 1970s, but it wasn't the graphic interface we know today. It was text-based messages between users on the network. Okay, so ARPANET was the very first step. What happened next? How did it grow from a government research network into something bigger? That's where a couple of other crucial developments come in. One of the biggest leaps was the creation of TCP, IP Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. Developed in the 1970s by Vinton Cerf and Robert Kahn, TCP, IP essentially became the language that all computers on the network could speak. It standardized how data was broken into packets, sent across the network, and reassembled at the destination. So, TCP, IP was like the universal translator for computers? That sounds like a really important step. Absolutely. It was a game changer. Before TCP, IP, different networks often couldn't communicate with each other easily. TCP, IP allowed these disparate networks to connect and form a network of networks, which is essentially what the internet is, an interconnected network. It made the entire system much more scalable and universal. Do you know what I mean by game changer? I think so. It's like something that completely changes the way things are done, making a huge difference. Like when smartphones came out, that was a game changer for mobile phones. Spot on. That's a perfect example. TCP/IP was definitely a game changer for networking. It truly opened the doors for the internet to become what it is today. Another important step was the domain name system, or DNS, developed in the early 1980s. Before DNS, you had to type in numerical IP addresses to access specific computers or services, which was very inconvenient. DNS allowed us to use memorable names like google.com, instead of a string of numbers. Wow, that would have been a nightmare to remember all those numbers. So, we had ARPANET, then TCP, IP, and DNS. But still no World Wide Web, right? When did that happen? You're right, the World Wide Web came later, and it's another pivotal moment. The Internet, as we've discussed, was primarily a way for computers to talk to each other. The World Wide Web, or WWW, was developed by Tim Berners-Lee at CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, in the late 1980s and early 1990s. His goal was to create a system for sharing information easily among physicists around the world. So the web was an application built on top of the Internet? It wasn't the Internet itself? That's something I always confused. Exactly. That's a very common misconception. The Internet is the underlying infrastructure, the wires, cables, routers, and protocols like TCP, IP that allows computers to connect globally. The World Wide Web is one of the most popular applications that runs on the Internet, using technologies like HTML for web pages, HTTP for transferring data, and web browsers to view it all. It essentially made the Internet accessible and user-friendly for the general public, not just scientists and engineers. That's a really clear distinction. So, Berners-Lee created HTML and HTTP in the first web browser? Yes, he did. He wrote the first web server, the first web client, which was a browser, editor, and defined HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, and HTML, hypertext markup language. And importantly, CERN made these technologies available to everyone royalty-free. This decision was absolutely crucial for the rapid growth and widespread adoption of the web. Imagine if you had to pay to use these fundamental technologies. That would have changed everything. So, when did people actually start using it, like regular people, not just researchers? The early to mid-1990s saw the real explosion in public use. The introduction of graphical web browsers like Mosaic in 1993, and then Netscape Navigator in 1994, made the web much more intuitive and appealing. Suddenly, you didn't need to be a computer expert to navigate information online. That's when companies started to see the commercial potential, and ISPs, internet service providers, started offering dial-up access to homes. Dial-up. I've heard my parents talk about that. That's when you had to connect using a phone line and it made that funny sound, right? That's right. And you couldn't use the phone while you were online. It was slow by today's standards, but it was revolutionary at the time. Companies like AOL became huge by offering easy-to-use internet access and proprietary content. This period, the mid to late 90s, is often called the dot-com boom, where countless new internet companies sprang up. So it went from a military project to a scientific sharing tool, then a public information platform, and then a commercial space really fast. What about social media and mobile internet? That's definitely the internet as I know it. Those are more recent developments, primarily in the 21st century. Social media platforms started gaining traction in the early 2000s with sites like MySpace, and then Facebook came along and truly changed the landscape. Mobile internet really took off with the advent of smartphones like the iPhone in 2007, which made accessing the internet on the go incredibly easy and integrated into daily life. Broadband internet also became widespread, replacing dial-up and allowing for faster speeds and richer content like streaming video. It's incredible to think about all those different stages and how much it's changed in such a relatively short time. From ARPANET to having the whole world in your pocket. It really is. The Internet has truly come a long way from its humble beginnings as a way for a few university computers to share data. It's evolved into an indispensable tool that connects billions of people globally. Come a long way means it has made a lot of progress or developed significantly, right? Exactly. It's a great phrase to use when something has seen significant improvement or development over time. Like, this technology has come a long way in just a decade. And that perfectly sums up the Internet's journey, wouldn't you say? Thanks for listening to English Boost. Remember, practice a little every day and you'll see big results. See you in the next episode.